Hello and welcome to the HIPAA Insider Show, where we discuss all things HIPAA compliance and cloud security. I'm your host, Adam Zeineddine. Before we dive in, please take a moment to hit whatever button it is that you have in the app that you're using, the subscribe button, the like, the share, and share it with anyone that's interested in healthcare and cloud security. I'm joined today by a special guest. Ray is a customer-obsessed marketing and growth leader who spent more than 20 years helping early-stage startups build and execute go-to-market strategy. As VP of Marketing at Freshpaint, he oversees the full marketing function and helps healthcare marketers access the Healthcare Privacy Platform, a data platform that enables healthcare companies to collect, safeguard, and activate customer data across their entire marketing stack. Previously, Ray led marketing and sales at TreeRing, Lawyor, which was acquired by Clio, FieldWire, acquired by Hilti. And you can follow him on LinkedIn for commentary and insights on healthcare marketing and the impact of federal and state privacy law on healthcare organizations. So I'm delighted to have Ray Mina join me today. Welcome, Ray.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really great to connect with you.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to have you on. You know, we have a lot of questions from listeners and viewers about healthcare marketing, and yeah, it's going to be great to dive into some of those with you today. The biggest thing, and we'll probably discuss it later on in a bit more detail, but the biggest thing that we get in terms of questions is from healthcare business owners that are looking to improve their digital presence. With the guidelines that HHS released, I think it was end of 2022, everything went up in the air because there was a lot of details about what was and wasn't HIPAA compliant, right? When it came to like things like Google Analytics and Facebook and the pixels that are used for tracking. So with the ever-changing HHS guidance, what do you see as the biggest challenges in healthcare that companies face today?
I wish I could tell you that it was just like really understanding HHS and the HIPAA guidance and then you're set. But what I think has happened since, and it was December of 2022, I remember we were working with a lot of health tech companies, but not traditional healthcare at the time. And literally after HHS issued that guidance overnight, we had some of the largest healthcare organizations, both from the payer and the provider side in America coming to us. And now you fast forward and it's 2024 and you think that by now, like there's a pretty good handle on this stuff. Yeah. But we're seeing the FTC weigh in, literally banning people, like banning healthcare organizations from even using the tools that you called out, like Facebook in their settlements. Like some of these organizations, I won't drop names here. You could Google them later if you want, but they can't even use Facebook ads or Google ads anymore. They can't share any data with those tools at all. You've got states, I think we're up to 19 now, that have issued consumer privacy laws that are adjacent to HIPAA type laws. And then you have over 200 individual class action lawsuits against health organizations were open last year. And according to lawyers who've been doing this a while, 200 is a lot. So there's like multiple pillars of regulations and legal actions that healthcare organizations have to navigate today. And it's becoming more and more difficult versus less difficult for them.
Yeah, how can they stay ahead of those regulations and the regulatory changes? It must be difficult.
It is, yeah. I think it really is. I think up until, the beginning of 2023, after people absorbed some of this guidance and compliance and legal teams were coming to marketing and saying, take off these pixels, we're getting sued or we're afraid of getting sued. I think the dust has settled a little bit there. And one of the biggest recommendations that we always make is that marketing can no longer operate like in a silo. Like you really do need to build those relationships with your legal, your chief compliance officer, the IT team. Typically marketers in traditional healthcare don't have growth marketing teams where they have dev resources. So IT would be your go-to there. So it's really like partnering very closely with those folks who, like, marketers aren't experts in the nuances of like we operate in Washington state, and I don't know the nuances of that healthcare privacy law, but your legal and compliance team, that's their job, and continue to have that conversation. That's a first step. A second step is like, before you do anything, just make sure you have a complete audit. Yeah. Make sure you fully understand what is, because this really has to do with like what kind of trackers are on your healthcare website and what data is being shared to the destinations that those trackers power. And then is it okay to send that data to that tracker? Meaning, do you have like a legal framework in place with your data warehouse or some other tool? Get that audit, because what you'll find, like every healthcare organizations we work with, they find two buckets at the end of that. They're sending sensitive data to tools that it's okay. They've signed what's called a business associate agreement. Yeah. They have the right contracts. It's okay to send Snowflake a bunch of data because you have the right legal framework that's taken care of. But they also find a bunch of tools, specifically like Google Analytics, Facebook ads, there are obvious ones, but even brand awareness tools, like some of these demand side platforms that run display advertising to like an audience in a given market. Yeah. Those tools don't sign business associate agreements by design. They don't want to like be involved with safeguarding your PHI because they're actually using it for other purposes. So you have to get to that place. And then the last piece is you got to do something about those tools. You can't keep using those trackers on your site and sending sensitive data to a tool where the BA doesn't exist, because that's exactly what lawyers are scanning sites for to look for. And that's exactly what the regulators have their eyes open towards.
Yeah. From the end of 2022, we've had an increasing number of people reach out to us saying, hey, how do I get my analytics set up in a HIPAA compliant way, right? And initially what we were doing was we were saying, well, at the very least, if you're going to be, well, the kill switch is remove all tracking from the whole website, and then you're good to go.
Sure,
right? Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah, you can
no problem.
Follow that down and just say, don't bother with the website, right? But like after we looked at things, I think the recommendation that we were giving at the start was, if you can, because we're a HIPAA compliant host, if you can bring us a software that we can host for you, that is going to be storing the data, then we could probably be good to go and move from there. But I think the key there is when you mentioned about the audit, it's not as simple as that, because you also want to have the right dashboard to be able to give you the information that you need. So could you talk a little bit about, healthcare organizations making the transition from, not really knowing how the tracking is being done and being compliant to knowing, and how does Freshpaint play in helping them do that?
Yeah, I think what we learned, like the first like large healthcare organizations that came to us, like that it was an analytics problem. Like we've spent a decade building a culture of data, and now it's effing chaos because we can't measure anything. Yeah. But then we really quickly learned that larger healthcare organizations that have a large digital ad spend and have like a strategic focus on digital marketing, they're implementing what we as marketers call like full funnel strategies. Like, I want to create brand awareness in my market. I want to drive those people to that convert to a patient experience. And that may require like helping you find the healthcare you need and optimizing the appointment booking experience. And it's not just the measurement and the analytics part, it's all of those tools along that journey. So, the first part starts with, look, I'll say it, you can go, there's a bunch of different analytics alternatives that if you have the energy to rip and replace, and it's not going to fully disrupt your downstream workflows, but that's only going to solve like a very small part of your problem, because you're using digital ad channels, Facebook, Google ads, Stack Adapt at the top of the funnel that don't sign BAs. And it's not just tracking. These tools don't work very well unless you send a data set to them about conversion information, because they're using machine learning to optimize those conversions. Trust me, test it. Remove data flow to an ad tool that's optimizing for conversion, and you will see your customer acquisition cost, CPL, whatever you measure. We've seen customers where that goes up by 8x. Like your CFO is not going to let you spend money in those channels going forward. So that's where you have to really think about this from what is your digital marketing strategy and what is the durable way as privacy regulations continue to change that makes it easy for you to adapt. And what is the durable way that addresses a growing list of tactics that you might employ in your digital marketing strategy? And that's what we quickly realized in the beginning of 2023 is like, this isn't an analytics problem. This isn't just a Google Ads problem. It's a digital marketing problem. And so we built a healthcare privacy platform. We actually had, we were a CDP. We call ourselves a recovering CDP for reasons I can explain later if we have time. But we basically built a healthcare privacy platform to focus on addressing this digital marketing stack. And what we do is we wipe out, you remove all of those native web trackers that are just freely sharing third-party data to the third parties. And instead, you replace that with one BA-supported tracker. That's Freshpaint. We collect all the data for you, store it in a HIPAA-compliant way, and then we empower marketing and legal teams without the need for engineering resources to choose what data can be sent to Google Analytics, to choose what data can be sent to Facebook. And there are ways to send a limited data set to these tools that make them very effective without actually sharing PHI. So there are ways to find like this, I gave Google just what they needed to do the job, but I didn't give them the whole smorgasbord that they want to optimize for their future.
Yeah, that's great. And I echo that. I mean, when we went down the route of, recommending tracking software or tracking systems to be installed on a HIPAA compliant host, it did solve one problem in the sense that any data that was being stored was in a HIPAA compliant environment. But the staff that were using the tools that they've been using for years, whether it's Google Analytics or whatever it was, they had to be completely retrained, retooled. And
that's right.
Also the organization was it was chaotic. So it can be done, but it takes a lot more effort on the organization side in order to achieve it. So correct me if I'm wrong, but Freshpaint positions itself as a healthcare privacy platform.
Yes.
Can you explain a little bit more about how the platform helps the marketers, emphasis on the marketers, where safeguard the data, but still allow them to do what they want to do in terms of activating that data?
Yeah, maybe this is a good time to explain what I meant by being a recovering CDP. So
yes,
when Freshpaint,
could you explain what a CDP is?
Yeah. So what's a CDP? A customer data platform's job is to make it really easy for you to take the first party data that you're collecting from your product or your website. In healthcare, it would be your marketing website, and then pass that downstream to tools like Facebook or your email engagement platform, or if you're using text messaging for a reminder we just make it really easy to get that down. The issue with CDPs, there's two in healthcare. One is traditional healthcare teams don't have a lot of development resources, and CDPs are built for engineers. So you need a pretty intensive engineering effort to stand them up. And most of the folks, and we've talked to the biggest players in the healthcare space, they don't have access to these resources. It takes 3 weeks to get someone to remove a tracker from the website, let alone stand up a CDP.
Yeah.
The other part, and I said at the beginning, is CDPs make it really easy to get the whole payload of data downstream to the tool. And that's a huge problem in a heavily regulated industry like healthcare.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what's happened is like you put these trackers or you put CDPs in place and they're just sharing everything that they're collecting. And you can't do that. You have to be precise. So we basically inverted it. We said, okay, how do you do this without engineering resources? How do you make this easy for a marketer who's not a dev person to stand this up? And so we basically pre-built everything. So we pre-built server-side integrations with Google Ads, with Facebook Ads, with all these different tools. We basically have a tracking snippet that is you get your IT team to put the snippet on the head of the website and you're good to go, or on specific pages. And then the most important step is once you're collecting data from your website and you're connected to, say, Google Ads, Google search ads, Freshpaint by default is sending no data to that tool, zero. A CDP by default would be sending everything.
Yeah.
Now you have the risk. You have to have someone go in and filter every event and make sure there's no PHI in there. And then what we do is we have a visual interface that literally legal and marketing teams sit down together and they negotiate what data points is okay to share with something like Google Ads. And
so
then
it implements, the HIPAA principle of least privilege and security. And if you watch James Bond, need to know basis.
The James Bond need to know basis. That's exactly the approach.
Okay. Well, let's turn this on its head for a second, if you entertain me. So we've talked a bit about the businesses here, the healthcare businesses, and how they need to comply with law. If you could shift it towards the patient side a little bit, because obviously ultimately it's all about what's called improving patient outcomes when it comes to healthcare in general. What would me, if I was a patient browsing the web, what should I look out for generally, and what should I be cautious of when it comes to visiting a website? I mean, I see a lot more of accept cookies nowadays. Should I be declining all those? Does it depend on how serious I am about the websites I'm visiting, how much I trust it? Like, if we could play with that idea for a bit.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on consent management. There's consent management, which basically opts you out of cookies, but that also, as we both know, that also doesn't necessarily, if web trackers exist on that site, it doesn't necessarily disconnect their ability to collect data about you and capture it downstream. I think for consumers, this is a pretty opaque experience. Like, unless you're going and I don't know that many consumers that have the time to do this, and you're doing a site scan, there are tools where you can do a site scan and you can see what trackers are on that particular site. I don't do that when I visit websites. So I think that I think that as a consumer, you're really relying on the regulations, you're relying on the privacy laws to force healthcare industries and other regulated industries to make some of these common sense changes that are as a consumer, we don't want our experience to fall apart.
Yeah.
But we also recognize that you also don't need to share, these organizations don't need to share all the data that they're sharing. But I'll be honest, there's not a great way today for consumers to really know what's happening under the hood on these websites, unless they're technical and they want to spend a bunch of time scrutinizing the websites they visit.
But tools like Built With and things like that. But you said, I mean, who's got the time to, every time they want to check out a website, take that URL and paste it into a scanner tool? And
no one's doing that. You're trying to get your kid to school and you're trying to get.
But I will. They use Pixel. I'm not gonna get. Let me say one thing though that I want to make really clear is that healthcare marketers and healthcare organizations, in all my experience, they're not doing, for the most part, there's outliers obviously in every industry. They're not doing bad stuff with patient data. They're just using it to try to help patients find the right services and things like that. The issue is that the ad tech companies, where the data ends up, they have one motivation. Google and Facebook combined, it's $250 billion a year in advertising income. Their only motivation is to continue to grow that at whatever cost. And they really don't care about how the data is being used. And so that's really the villain here. They just want the data. And the good news is healthcare providers are learning that there are ways for them to deliver that experience, but give way, 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 way less data. It's really the shift from this third-party data world where we just pump everything out to a first-party data world. We collect the data, and then to your James Bond point, we are very, very careful and selective about how we use it to, improve and enrich the experience. Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot of education involved in that. Like you said, it's not really 99.9% of healthcare providers are not out there to, harvest data
No.
just for the sake of it. It's more just about them knowing what data they need, what data they don't,
Yes.
how they can.
Adam, I want to say one other thing is like what I haven't seen yet, which I think healthcare CMOs and brands, I think they will start to recognize this, because you raise a really good point, the consumer side. I've seen a lot of brands doing the right things to safeguard data, but none of them are using it as a strategic advantage for their brand. Like if I was the CMO of a large healthcare organization and I've done all the work and spent all the money, because it's not free to like fix this stuff.
No.
I would want my patients to know that I'm taking a privacy first approach, that we really care about your experience, but we also care about safeguarding your data. Here's what we've done about it. I would let my consumer market know. And I really haven't seen healthcare organizations put that front and center. And I expect that as this becomes normalized, that they will start to see the strategic advantage there.
Yeah. Switching lanes a little bit. You've had a long career in marketing, and long may it continue. If you wanted to. You've worked with several successful startups. Have you seen marketing on one side and data privacy on another evolve, and the intersection between that? Could you talk a little bit about what advice you give for companies in healthcare navigating marketing and data privacy moving forward?
I think it's really tricky, right? Like I have to first say that I'm a spoiled SaaS brat who never really worked in a heavily regulated industry, and I didn't have the sensitivity to privacy that healthcare has. That being said, like I've always operated in a world of putting in my context, the healthcare marketing team is and compliance team, that's my customer. I've always operated in a world of like doing best for them. Like I've got a board that wants me to grow really fast, and I've got founders that want us to grow really fast. I get that. But I've never been willing to do it at the sacrifice of like what's right for the end customer. And I think that's just a North Star. And even if there's no regulation or no thing that's like blocking me, when I look at things that my team is proposing, or I look at things that maybe like the wider team is proposing, and I'm like, that just doesn't feel like, if I'm that person, that doesn't feel like what I want you to be doing. And so like, let's find a different way. And I think that's kind of a mindset I know that a lot of marketers in healthcare also share. And it's just staying true to those first principles, even under like a growing pressure of lower margins and budget cuts, like continuing to do what's right, because that's what you're going to pay at some point. Like you're going to pay now or pay later. Like your customers are not idiots. Like they will eventually catch up. And once you've burned that like brand preference, then that's a hard thing to recover from.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's key. Having that lens of, definitely we need to be productive, but we also need to keep the customer, who's the most important thing, the whole reason that we're doing the work in mind. There's a lot said nowadays about move fast and break things. And that is important when it comes to innovation and moving things forward. As a startup, it's really important, like you said, to have that just extra thing in the back of your mind that's saying like, well, yes, I can get this done this way, but is it going to impact privacy, data security by not slowing down a little bit? And as the company grows, I think generally what happens is, because you're hiring, you're hiring to solve specific problems, you end up getting someone like we've got a compliance manager on hand. I'm sure you guys do, a compliance staff that are able to kind of approve things, take a look at things, and make sure that while we keep moving fast, we're doing it in a responsible way.
Is this a spicy take to say that I hate the move fast, break stuff part, especially the second part? Like, was that Sequoia that said that like 35 years ago? Like, I think that's the moving fast part is super important. I think for a lot of our customers, larger healthcare organizations with a defined market, moving fast is less important, and maybe it's about time boxing stuff. So we have a thesis for something. We can't say like to our leadership that it's going to take a year to get the results. How do we time box it to say that we can demonstrate results? And it might be unrealistic for 30 days, but like, what's the smallest time box we can get to? Some kind of proof point that gives everyone the good feeling of like investing more in it. And then the break stuff thing, you just can't, if you're in a regulated industry, it's not an option for you, because the breaking stuff ends up like losing a job, getting sued. It's like it's not good. Like nurses get sued all the time and get fired and lose their nursing license over sharing PHI. Like, it's not something to like mess around with. So I think you just can't dismiss that part. Like, you just have to always keep it in mind.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I think but move fast, break things. I think it's used sometimes accurately where you're in a burgeoning industry, a kind of Wild West thing where it's just like we don't have time. There's no one cares right now. There's not much of an industry in place. But for healthcare, it's definitely not a good attitude.
We could have a whole podcast conversation about why move fast break stuff is actually just really bad growth framework.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, I think we're coming up to the end of our time, Ray. So, was there anything that we haven't touched on that you'd like to mention?
I don't think so. Like, shameless plug, I'm on LinkedIn. So if you're in healthcare marketing and you want to get into the nuances of privacy and even full funnel strategies, we've got a lot of customers who are leveraging those to like improve results on similar spend. And then Freshpaint, if you're still trying to figure out how to like continue to run the campaigns you need to grow and mitigate the risk of privacy that is in front of you, it's freshpaint.io. We're definitely have a lot of content that helps people stay informed and at least keep up to date on the latest, regulations and guidance that continue to drop.
Awesome. Yeah, and links in the description, and we'll make sure we use these episodes as well as materials when people do reach out to us with specific questions, and they don't necessarily just want to get a quick answer. They want to kind of ingest and understand the process a little bit better. So we'll be sure to share this with them. Well, Ray, thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you all for listening and watching. And until next time, thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for having me.